It was one of Premier Doug Ford's big election promises, a line-by-line audit of government spending. Once commissioned, it turned out to be more of a line-by-line review, not just of current expenditures, but of the past 15 years of Liberal government spending. The results are in, and here to tell us about them, Peter Bethlenfalvy. He is president of the Treasury Board of Cabinet and the MPP for Pickering-Uxbridge, and it's your first time on this program, so we're delighted to welcome you here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
I think everybody knows what the Minister of Health does and the Minister of Social Services and the Minister of the Environment, but I'm not sure anybody knows what the President of the Treasury Board of Cabinet does. Can we just start by having you tell us, what do you do?
The Treasury Board President looks after all the pennies and nickels and dollars that come through government. We spend over $150 billion a year, and all expenditure requests come through a Treasury Board. So it's actually a board. I chair it. Vic Fedeli, the Minister of Finance, is the Vice Chair, and I have 6 other cabinet ministers. So if you want to put up a new hospital or spend some money for a new road, you've got to go through Treasury Board.
Every government expenditure goes through
Pretty much
you.
Every government expenditure gets reviewed. And then we also take a look back to see how we spent it through the public accounts, which is the balance sheet looking back.
Which leads us to our discussion today. The province's expenses have been examined numerous times, actually. You've got the Financial Accountability Officer, you have the Auditor General of the province. They are nonpartisan, neutral observers of these things. So the obvious first question is, what did we need this additional overview for? Well,
I think when any new government comes in, it's true, you want to take a hard look and see what the real situation is. And when you have an Auditor General, someone independent, with a lot of integrity, say something doesn't add up. When you have the Financial Accountability Officer, another independent body, say things don't add up. You want to take a look. And we had an independent commission of inquiry take a look to get an independent view, not just our view, once we got in there. So it's important to find out exactly what the state of the situation is. In business, you would do the same thing if you moved in a new company.
Well, let's share those numbers. Here are some of the key findings that your team discovered as a result of a look at the books from 2003 to 2018. The province's operating expenses increased by 55%, that's a little over $46 billion over the 15 years. You say per capita spending grew by 32% to a little over $2,200 a person. During this period, the provincial debt increased by 87%. It now sits at $338 billion. And the annual interest on the debt grew by $2.4 billion. As we learned from the Finance Minister Vic Fedeli last week, the Ford government now estimates that the deficit is at $15 billion, so $15 billion away from balance. The Auditor General has said the number was $11.7 billion. The previous Liberal government said it was $6.7 billion, so there is quite a discrepancy here. Overarching question is, how do you think Ontarians should feel about those numbers?
I think it's a wake-up call. I think it's absolutely a wake-up call. Just like any family, you can't spend more than you take in every year. And we have to protect core services. You know, the provincial government funds healthcare, education, social services. That's what we're about, protecting, so that not only this generation, but future generations, that we have a functioning healthcare system, education system, that we can be world-class. I think numbers like that, we're falling behind.
Sorry, I think the report also shows, though, that while government may be spending more, the economy is actually growing at an even faster pace. Is that not good news?
Well, I think it's great news if the economy, I mean, this is a multifaceted analysis, but at the end of the day, it's not about ideology, it's about math. The math is that, as you just highlighted, our expenditures are growing faster than revenues. The evidence is that the debt, you have to finance the shortfall with debt. The debt is ballooning. And the evidence is, I remember, since I do watch your show from time to time, sometimes late, sometimes early, I think you had Deb Matthews, a former Treasury Board president,
one of your
and I
predecessors.
remember her saying, you know, a bright line is 40% debt to GDP. Well, when the previous government took over, 2003, it was at 27. We're now at 39. We're right at the precipice of 40%, that red line that she talked about. And you know, external factors like the NAFTA, we'll have to see. I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic, but we'll have to see. A global recession, we're not immune from external factors. So I think it's a wake-up call, and the math tells us that we have to act.
You won't be surprised to hear there are some people who don't share your view of how to read the numbers. And here is one group. It's called the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, and they had the following to say about all of this. Ernst & Young wasn't commissioned to give numbers in context. It was commissioned to set the stage for this new provincial government to A, attempt to confine the Liberal Party of Ontario to political oblivion, B, frame the government party as the fiscal savior, and C, and to set the stage for public service cuts, privatization, deregulation, means testing, automation, and a major battle with public sector unions. The report makes a number of recommendations for the government to, quote, optimize investment, including reducing the regulatory and administrative cost burden, which really means deregulation, putting the corporate foxes in charge of the henhouse, asset optimization, which is doublespeak for selling off public assets and privatizing public services, no involuntary job losses, which is doublespeak for public sector staffing cuts by attrition. This wasn't a line-by-line financial review. This was a frame job. That's what they're saying. Your comment.
Well, I respectfully disagree. And again, the math, it's not ideology. I don't know what spectrum of the ideological spectrum she's on. But the fact is, the math tells us that we have a much bigger debt burden, as I just pointed out. The other thing that we learned, and the idea is in there, is that we have to modernize and we have to transform the way government delivers services. We can't do the same old with our front lines have a labor dispute over wages the old way. We need the front lines to be with us to help modernize and transform the government so that we can find the savings so that we can fund healthcare and education.
But the suggestion here is that this is less of a financial document and more of a political document. You're using this to get us ready for something. You saw the list of things she thinks you are getting us ready for. Is that not true?
We asked E&Y to present a range of options, and they're maybe not that catchy, but they're very important to the functioning of government, like digitization. I don't know when you last got your health card, but you got to physically go down and get your health card. I had someone in my ministry spend 3 hours in line. I can tell you, not only does a citizen not want to spend 3 hours in line, but the person, you know, if you're frustrated by the end of that line, the person dealing with you is not going to have a rewarding type job. So 30% of our transactions in Service Ontario are digital. We'd like to get that up, and the cost is actually 57% lower. So I would say to her and all Ontarians, and the feedback we got was, we need to modernize. There's efficiencies and transformations that we can do while not cutting jobs. This is about embracing the front lines.
You're on the record here again today as saying there will not be widespread job cuts.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not what we're talking about here. In fact, just the opposite. We can't modernize government without the input of the front lines.
Well, here's what EY, Ernst & Young, for us old-timers, I remember when they were Ernst & Young. They said the transfer payments, I mean, you talked about in this report here, $46.3 billion of more spending in the last 15 years under the Liberals. And that was transfer payments to hospitals, schools, colleges, boards of education, and so on. If you want to tackle that debt and the deficit, does that not suggest that that number's got to come down? And if so, does that not suggest there's going to be less money spent on health, on education, and so on?
It's less money spent on waste. It's less money spent on duplication. And I can give you some examples. First of all, in the report, there's some benchmarking against other provinces. Other provinces, we're not alone in tackling these problems. An aging population, challenges on the cost side. We clearly have a spending problem in this province, but the report also looked at BC and Quebec, who've, over the 15-year period, have found ways to modernize and transform and are actually in fiscal, not only balance, but surplus, and actually paying down debt and providing services. So how the provinces, our fellow provinces, do that? I would point out that BC, for example, has a debt to GDP of 15. We're close to 40. Quebec's debt to GDP is coming down. They are repaying debt. Their rating now with S&P is higher than Ontario's.
Standard & Poor's.
Standard & Poor's, yes. So you know, I think this is a wake-up call. It's not really about ideology. It's about...
In which case, let me ask you this. In the report, they say that government spending averaged over the 15 years that the Liberals were in power, have I got this right, is about 3% a year.
Yes.
What do you think it should be?
I think it should be less than the money you take in. If you don't, you can't, the credit card for the people of Ontario is not unlimited. We see around the world. I was the co-president of DBRS, Dominion Bond Rating Service, a debt rating agency. And so I was part of a team that reviewed the books of a lot of governments, not just in this country, but around the planet. And those that take action early, that are participatory with the people, and so consultative, that's what we did with the Planning for Prosperity online survey. By the way, 26,000 ideas from the front lines. It's all about collaboration, great ideas. But one lesson is you've got to act and you got to act early.
Well, the reason I ask you that question is 3% a year over 15 years with inflation running at 2 or 2.5%. I mean, that's not that big a difference. Is it really fair to say that the Liberals were egregious spenders when they were spending about a half a point over inflation on average over the last 15 years?
You got to simplify it and look at the debt. The debt is now $338 billion. It's the highest debt, subnational debt on the planet. It's a debt to GDP, which is, I know it's a mathematical equation, but it basically says, it tells you, it gives you a benchmark of how you're doing. And like I said, the previous government started at 27. We're at 40. We're at the high end. Deb Matthews saying that's a red line. You don't want to go over that red line. So it's about the math, and you can go into all the numbers, but the evidence is out that the debt has been ballooning. There has been no fiscal responsibility, and it's not sustainable.
Well, you say no fiscal responsibility. I'm going to follow up on that as well, because most new governments that come in say we want to take a look at all the assets that we have and see if we can monetize them more effectively. And you know that the previous Liberal government decided to sell off, I think the ultimate number they had in mind was 60% of Hydro One. Did you agree with that, incidentally?
Well, I think any time that you do a one-time and give up revenues and prices go up, that's not a good thing.
Okay, because you've now got LCBO, the Liquor Board, you've got Ontario Lottery and Gaming, and you've got Ontario Power Generation, which are big, massive, multi-billion-dollar outfits. You've got them in the crosshairs now. What are your plans for them? Your words,
crosshairs. By the way, the report doesn't talk about any of those three, but it does talk generically about monetizing assets. We got to look at all options. We'll look at all business cases. I'm not sure they're good business cases there. We'll have to take a hard look. But there were 11 other areas of suggestions, maybe not the most catchy, but monetization, just a one-time saving. The other 11 are all about ongoing savings and efficiencies. So,
for example?
Procurement. Other provinces have centralized procurement. You can save significant amounts of money that various siloed ministries purchase equipment or technology on a siloed basis. We build buildings. Every hospital may hire an architect, or school will hire an architect and design many different types of schools. There's so many efficiencies. There's duplication and waste that we can really start to dig down on. And I think that's the thing from the E&Y report that says, government, take a look at this stuff. And the feedback we're getting from the front lines is, government, take a look at this stuff because we want to help you find those efficiencies. We know where they are, so let's get going.
Well, given the track record of the previous government, a Liberal government semi-privatized one of the crown jewels and of government assets and heard about it, right? It was probably one of the reasons that their popularity decreased as much as it did. Are you prepared to take the political risk at potentially monetizing, privatizing, use the word you like, one of those other three agencies I just mentioned?
Well, let's take LCBO as an example. If the benefit of monetizing a one-time gain, giving up the future revenues, and the business case says, but your bottle of wine is going to triple in price, I don't think that's a good business case.
Right.
So it's a hypothetical, but it's just a catchy type thing that people like to focus on. But the real hard work is going to be around digitizing, modernizing, and looking at back office efficiencies. Private sector does that all the time, but we've said we're doing this without job cuts because we want to engage the front lines. We want the people who are on the ground delivering the services, dealing with the patients, the teachers. We want them on board because they know where the inefficiencies are.
I would like to, Sheldon, I'm calling an audible here. Let's go to page 6, question 13, because you pointed out you're a former guy with DBRS, the Dominion Bond Rating Service. You're a pretty buttoned-down guy. You're not given to fancy flights of political rhetoric and so on. But the past week, we did see the Premier of Ontario accuse the previous Liberal government of, quote, dirty accounting tricks, and said that they took part in the worst political cover-up in Ontario history. And I want to know whether the Peter Bethlenfalvy, who used to be with DBRS, what he would have thought of that language.
Well, I can tell you that what I do think, and before one of the decisions to get into politics, Steve, was I thought the previous government was really pushing the envelope. And if you've ever looked at, for example, the Fair Hydro plan, we'd need 3 hours on your show to get through it, and we may not even figure out how that works. So there was some stuff going on. I think it's fair to ask people to be accountable for that and really understand what the intent of that was. So I think
worst cover-up in Ontario political history?
His words, I think that it certainly didn't, when something quacks like a duck and looks like a duck, it's probably a duck, but that's why we have the select committee who will who will be able to get to the answers. And I think we owe it to the people of Ontario to get to the answers. If you had an accounting situation in the private sector that was opaque, like the structured finance vehicles that blew up in the financial crisis, I think transparency is important and accountability is important. I think that's what this is about.
Did you ever get worried about making these analogies to the private sector, given that 10 years ago the private sector behaved about as egregiously, including the bond rating agencies of which you were once a member, maybe not DBRS, but certainly the ones in the States? Nobody was covered in glory in all that. These comparisons to the private sector, do they not get a little tiresome for you from time to time?
Well, I think one thing I've learned among many in the business sector is it's constant learning. So you look at what you did well and you look at things that you can do better. And my observation is that we have great people in the government of Ontario, but we've got to empower them and energize to find these savings, these efficiencies, and transform and modernize government. Governments around the world are doing this. You know, in the UK, they've digitized, they're way ahead of us. British Columbia is way ahead of us. We've got an incredible talent pool here in Ontario, both in the public sector and the private sector. So let's take that and transform Ontario.
You mentioned this special legislative committee that is about to be struck. There are going to be, I think, 6 Tories on the committee, 3 New Democrats, no Liberals, because they are not an officially constituted party, of course, not having come up with 8 seats. I wonder how, what's the word I'm looking for here? I wonder how sporting it is to have 6 Tories and 3 New Democrats review the past 15 years of Liberal spending practices. How sporting is that?
I think the people of Ontario spoke. The Liberals are in that predicament because of their actions, and you've got to be accountable, so they didn't get enough seats to form a party. And that's the way democracy works, so we're following the rules. We think it's completely legitimate to have this committee take a look and get answers.
They're not entitled to 1 seat on the committee so that they can defend the practices that you find so egregious?
I think that these are the rules of the House, and they're fine by me.
Is this I mentioned this earlier. There's the financial angle on this, and then there's the political angle on this. And let me talk about the politics for a second. You know, numerous newspaper columnists have observed that this may be one way for your government to kind of get back at its political enemies by not only creating this committee to look at the last 15 years of spending, but then kind of deny them some official institutional role to even participate in the process. Is this more about the perpetual campaign and having an enemy out there to target all the time?
Just the opposite. I think this is about holding people accountable, which I think is what people want from us. They want responsibility. They want to restore trust and accountability. They want us to be transparent. This is a part of transparency, get the answers. We released the full Commission of Inquiry report that we received, we put out in the public. We just released the EY report, the 55 pages, the report that my full caucus got. So that rebuilding trust and accountability is part of this process. But at the end of the day, we got to move forward. We got to look through the windshield, and that's what I'm really excited about, that there is opportunity to modernize government and deliver services at a better service quality level at a lower price. And that way we can return back to fiscal balance.
You know, again, with this language of the Premier's, the worst political cover-up in Ontario history, how exactly do you call something a cover-up that the Auditor General pointed out, that the Financial Accountability Officer pointed out, and that every media outlet in the province for the last several years reported on? How is that a cover-up?
I'm reaching in my pocket because some of the words used by the Auditor General were things like unlikely assumptions, inappropriate, unreliable.
Well, she didn't sign off on it. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. So this is someone who's independent, who is well respected in the province and in the country, the Financial Accountability Officer. If you've looked at the rating agency reports on the structure, I defy you, Steve, to kind of understand what really is going on. We also learned that this structure is going to cost Ontarians $4 billion in extra interest payments. We already have a $12+ billion interest expense, our 4th largest expense item. This is on top of that another $4 billion. Why? Because it's off balance sheet, it's on another structure, it's convoluted, and so the markets demand more interest costs for that. And so we're putting a $4 billion burden on the people of Ontario for what purpose? So I think we need answers. We need answers that the people can understand. But we need to move forward as well and get fiscal balance so that we can afford to fund the core services, the hospitals, mental health and addiction. We got to get going.
Let's finish up on this. I think in all my time of covering politics, the only time I've ever seen a government spend less one year than the previous year was actually the current Premier's brother when he was the Mayor of Toronto. They actually spent less in 1 year than they did the previous year, which is pretty hard to do. Are you telling us that you think you guys can modernize government, bend the cost curve to the point where the government of Ontario will actually spend less eventually than it does right now?
We owe the people of Ontario to give it a shot. So we're rolling up our sleeves.
That's not a yes.
Well, we're 89 days in. We're gonna get there. I actually am confident that we can get there. I've been looking at these numbers for a long time. I think that governments around the world have been able to do it. We've seen BC and Quebec do it. Quebec bonds now trade tighter than Ontario bonds. That's never happened in my life. So there is a path. The blueprint, the EY report that I have here, is a path forward. And I'm very excited to work hard with my colleagues, my caucus colleagues, to get this done for the people of Ontario and the taxpayers who want some relief.
There's that expression again, for the people. You guys like that one, don't you?
Well, it really is true. It's authentic.
That's Peter Bethlenfalvy. He's the president of the Treasury Board of Cabinet. He's the MPP for Pickering-Uxbridge, and we thank you for spending some time with us here on TVO tonight.
It's been a pleasure.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.